In this lesson, we're going to be talking about subdivision. So your two definitions: subdivision is dividing a note into smaller rhythmic parts. Dividing a note into smaller rhythmic parts, okay? And the pulse is the internal rhythm within a note. The internal rhythm. So think of it like your pulse, like if you were to take your pulse on your hand, there's a beat going on inside your body. So the pulse is the rhythm inside the notes. If when you have a long note, there's still a rhythm and a beat going on. Example, if you subdivide a half note by eighth notes, there are 4 pulses because there are 4 eighth notes in a half note. We're going to talk about that a little bit more down here. All right, so here's your rhythm pyramid, okay? And I kind of like to think of subdividing as like an x-ray, okay? So within a whole note, there are 2 half notes, 4 quarter notes, or 8 eighth notes. And this just shows both ways to mark them with flags or beams, but just 8 eighth note pulses. So it's kind of like if you took an x-ray of a whole note, you would find 8 eighth notes inside, or you would find 4 quarter notes inside that whole note, okay? All right, so how many quarter note pulses? So if you were gonna pulse quarter notes, if you were gonna do an x-ray and look for quarter notes, how many quarter notes would you find inside a half note? So you're only gonna go to here, and you're gonna see there are 4 quarter notes, okay? So your answer right here is 4. Okay, how many eighth note pulses are in a whole note? Okay, so this time you're going to come all the way down to right here within a whole note, still talking about a whole note. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 eighth notes within a whole note. Okay, pause the video and go ahead and answer the rest of those questions. Okay, how many quarter note pulses are in a half note? There are 2. How many eighth note pulses in a half note? 1, 2, 3, 4 in each of the half notes, so 4. How many quarter note pulses in a dotted half note? Now this one is not on your rhythm pyramid, so you have to think about, let's do a little rhythm pyramid up here. Okay, if you have a dotted half note up here, how many quarter notes would go in that? How many beats? 3 beats, so you have 3 quarter notes. Okay, and it's asking for quarter note pulses, so that's all we have to do. Okay, so it has 3 quarter note pulses inside each dotted half note. Now the next one asks how many eighth note pulses, so we need to keep breaking that out. Each quarter note, if you were to x-ray a quarter note, inside each quarter note are 2 eighth notes. So a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 eighth notes inside a dotted half note. So you'll notice that you multiply by 2. Anytime you go from quarter notes to eighth notes, you're just going to multiply by 2, okay? All right. How many eighth note pulses in a dotted quarter note? How many eighth note pulses in a dotted quarter note? So let's do our dotted quarter note over here. Okay, so within a quarter note, you're going to have 2 eighth notes, right? We just talked about that over here. Now, you got to think about what a dot does. We talked about how a dot adds half the value. So you can think of this 2 ways. You can think of it as, well, the dot added half a beat, and half of a beat is 1 eighth note. So it's 1 eighth note. That's fine. You could also think of it as, well, the dot added half of this, so half of 2 eighth notes is 1 eighth note. It's 1 eighth note. It's going to be the same, however you think of it. Okay, but there are 3 eighth notes inside a dotted quarter note. 3 eighth notes inside a dotted quarter note. Okay, all right, now what you're going to do here is you're going to draw a line from the measure on the left to the matching measure on the right, using your ties and your subdivision. And it's going to be a little bit tricky for you to see it, but you should be able to see it on your paper really well. These little ties, they're a little tricky to see on the video, but they should be fine if you're looking at your paper. So what we're wanting to do, ignore this. We'll do this here in a minute, okay? Let me cover this up actually, okay? All right, so here we have 2 half notes. So within each of these half notes, how many eighth notes are there going to be? You can use your rhythm pyramid to figure it out. Think about how many eighth notes tied together would make a half note, and how many eighth notes tied together would make a half note. And look over here and find the measure that you think shows how you would do 2 half notes if you played it with the ties. Okay, yeah, hopefully you may have to pause the video if you haven't figured out the answer yet. All right, so this one right here is the correct answer, because here you have this is the beginning of the note, then you tie, 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 and then this is the beginning of the note, tie, tie, tie. So this is a half note, 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is a half note, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're going to draw a line to connect those two to show that those two are the same. So technically, I could write it like this, or I could write it like this. Now, it wouldn't really make any sense to write it like this, but in your mind, as you're playing it, you should be thinking of all those pulses, okay, to make sure your rhythm's exactly right. Okay, now this one has a dotted quarter note, then an eighth note, and then 2 quarter notes. So you're going to need to pause the video probably so you can look. You're going to look real carefully and try to figure out which of these measures would be played exactly the same way as measure 2 up here. Okay, so the correct answer is going to be this one right here. So this is 1, tie, tie. And then this would be the and or the te. Okay, the upbeat would be 2. This would be 3. And this would be 4. So these two are the same. They would be played or counted the same way. All right, now look at this one. It's very similar, but it's not going to have this tie, right? So you have a dotted quarter note, eighth note, 2 eighth notes, and a quarter note. So look at those 3 and find the one that would be the same. Okay, and it would be this one here. Now, notice these are written with flags, and this is written with a beam. But it's the same. You've got 3 eighth notes in the middle, 3 eighth notes in the middle. Got a dotted quarter note at the beginning. 3 pulses is the same as a dotted quarter note. And you've got 2 eighth notes tied together, which is the same as a quarter note. So that is the correct answer. Okay, why don't you figure out the last 2, and then we'll check your answer. Okay, so you should have probably paused the video to figure that out. So this one is the same as this one. You've got that long tied group at the beginning, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 eighth notes fit into a dotted half note, and then this one is the same as this one. So 4 eighth notes tied together, then 3, and then 1 by itself at the end. Okay, let's finish this up. Last thing, fill in the missing notes in the pyramid below. So pause if you need to. Fill those in real quickly. You can look at this one if you need. All right, you should have filled in a half note, a quarter note, a flagged eighth note, and then 2 beamed eighth notes. And there's no reason that you have to do 4 flagged and 4 beams. It just gives you a practice at looking at both and drawing both, but eighth notes can be written either way. Okay. The link to the next lesson in this video series can be found in the description below.